Hello, and thank you for being with me again. Today I would like to talk about a topic that is perhaps a bit more general than those I usually deal with, but I do so because it certainly does come into a lot of religious discussion and what should be spiritual discussion as well. And this is the great problem we have today in life with dualism. Dualism meaning, in my view, the fact that you have to believe one thing or another. One has to be right and the other has to be wrong. And this dualistic thinking is behind so many of our problems in the world today, so many of the things that we battle with. And as I say, there's no shortage of it in Christian videos that we may see online and so on. And what I'm asking you to consider is, in your spiritual growth, what we should really be striving for is to become spiritually mature. Spiritually in a place where we are mature in the sense that it's not so much about being right or wrong, but rather about seeking the truth and being prepared when I find that I have made a mistake to accept that I was wrong, that I have made a mistake, because only that way will I arrive at the real truth. If something comes along that shows me that I was wrong in something that I'd maintained before, there's no shame. It's actually the right thing would be for me to acknowledge my incorrect conception before and see things as they really are, see the truth behind things. And this should be called on in all sorts of discussions in our world, where simply because someone has a different or maybe even a contrary opinion to mine does not mean that I have to prove them wrong in order for me to be right. You see, this comes about as a fear of making a mistake. And many of us are afraid of having to ever admit that we were wrong, having ever admit that we made a mistake, that we took the wrong line, and so on. And this is a rather absurd way of living our lives, because if I'm not going to make another mistake in my life, I surely won't be around for very long. And we all do make mistakes. What is important, though, is not the lack of mistakes in our lives, but it's the willingness to grow, the willingness to seek the truth above all else, and the willingness, when we do find something, to rejoice in the fact that perhaps it means I was wrong, but I've arrived at a further truth, and that is growth. And this is what I should be looking for. And as I say, we find this in many discussions, and what we should remember always is that there are these two forces, we could say, in the world. The one is the force of separation, which is the work of what many people would call the devil. This bringing animosity between people because they have a different opinion. You should attack them, you should be angry with them, they should be your enemy, and so on. And then there's the force of good, the force of God, the force of love, which brings us together, unites us, and we can see that there's plenty of scope for differing opinions. It's only that mine doesn't have to be the right one, but it might also be the right one for me, but not necessarily for everyone else. And in accepting that I will be wrong sometimes in my life, and that what is essentially important is growing in the truth, I will overcome this problem of being angry when it's shown that I've been wrong, in being unwilling to accept the ideas of anyone else as being valid, and at all costs sticking to my guns and not being prepared to accept that, well, this other person maybe was correct on this occasion, and thank God that I have arrived at this new truth. You see, we have plenty of scope, as I say, for differing views. I would use as an example, because I prefer to use the example of the Catholic Church, because if I'm going to criticize or praise anyone, I should do so within that church since I'm a member of it. But for example, in the Catholic Church, we have a long tradition of differences, but differences incorporated into the same church. Today, for example, one only need watch a little limited amount of YouTube, for example, to see the huge debate that goes on and the backwards and forwards over the traditional Latin Mass and the current vernacular Mass, and see the divisions and the hard feelings that come through sometimes in these discussions. But we fail to see that in our own church and in our tradition over centuries and centuries, we have various religious orders, each one with their own particular focal point, each one with what we call their own charism, whether that be preaching, whether that be the works of charity, and whatever else it may be, poverty and so on. These things are there, each one with their particular focus. And as I say, it doesn't mean that one is right and one is wrong, but in mutual respect, mutual love, we can live together and be united in one church, in one people. And so what I'm saying in this situation is that, as I said before, someone else having a different opinion of mine doesn't have to mean that theirs is right and mine is wrong, or vice versa. What it can mean is that that is merely preferable to me or preferable to them. And that may be the preference that they're called upon to express in the world. And thank God if they express it well and express it with love and fraternity with everyone else. And that there's this kinship between people, accepting each other as we are and searching together to grow in the truth, to grow in unity, to grow in love. And I pray that you may find the peace that comes from not having to be right always, and from recognizing, as I say, that everyone else doesn't have to be wrong for you to be right, and vice versa. And so I thank you for your time given listening to this talk, and I pray God's blessing on you and your loved ones. Thank you.